Sign it. I've been waiting for this divorce form.
My husband, Arthur, thrust the divorce papers at me roughly, leaving me in shock. Next to him, a young woman is grinning.
Well, so you're Arthur's wife? Sign the papers right now. We're getting married.
Even if Michelle forgives you for having a mistress and a secret child, I won't.
Grandma, you're so cool. But don't push yourself too hard. It's bad for your health. You're an old lady after all, so just take it easy.
Arthur's mistress, Emily, mocks my mom with a sneer. It was irritating, but my mom wasn't someone to be intimidated by such things.
Oh, you don't know about that, do you?
My mom smirks confidently.
What do you mean by that?
That is that. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Emily was clearly shaken. My name is Michelle Johnson. I'm 41 years old. It's been 16 years since I married Arthur. Arthur was a classmate from college. I remember him as flashy, outgoing, smooth-talking, and always surrounded by girls. He was a typical playboy. I didn't like guys who were showy, so I kept my distance from Arthur. I had no intention of getting close to him, nor was I interested. Unlike the other girls, I didn't fall for his charms. Maybe that's what caught Arthur's interest. He started talking to me and persistently asking me out. I'm not good at saying no, but at first I managed to come up with excuses and kept refusing. But when I ran out of excuses and started feeling guilty about turning him down all the time, I finally agreed to go out with him, just once. It must have been a moment of weakness. I never imagined that my decision would lead to such deep regret later on. Arthur started a web development company with his friends while still in college. Since he contributed half the capital, he became the CEO. He was smart, good at reading trends, and had a knack for getting by, so the company quickly got off the ground. A college student became the CEO, and the company kept growing. He even got featured in magazines and became somewhat of a celebrity. After that fateful day, when I started dating Arthur, I began to feel like he was someone from a distant world and started distancing myself. That only seemed to fuel Arthur's determination, and shortly after graduating college, I was half coerced into marriage.
Let's get married.
It was an unexpected proposal for me. Really, I was at a loss for words. I hadn't even considered marriage.
What's the matter? Isn't this the part where you tear up and say, I'd love to? Are you so moved that you can't speak?
No, that's not it.
Not it? That hurts me, a famous college student CEO like me proposing. Any normal girl would cry tears of joy.
I'm sorry. It's just that I think it's too soon. I just started my job, and I won't be able to balance work and household duties if I don't get the hang of it first. I hurriedly tried to correct myself.
You plan on continuing to work? I'm making enough money for the both of us. So just quit.
I quickly realized after we started dating that Arthur never changes his mind. I knew this conversation was pointless, but I didn't want Arthur deciding my life for me. But I went to college and got a job, so I want to keep working. This was something I wasn't willing to compromise on. I clung to this idea desperately.
Well, you've already achieved your goal of getting a job, so you can call it quits now.
Arthur's logic never made sense to me. In the end, I stayed quiet, and that satisfied Arthur.
Are you saying, Michelle, that you want to reject my proposal?
No, that's not it.
Then it's settled. Let's start planning everything. We're going to be busy.
I couldn't say anything more. There was no reason for anyone to oppose my marriage to Arthur, who was a successful professional with a solid income. I remember feeling like I was being swept up in a whirlwind as everything moved forward quickly, despite my own feelings. A flashy wedding, an extravagant honeymoon. From the outside, I must have seemed like the picture of happiness. I wasn't too thrilled about the marriage, but seeing how happy my mom was made me resolve to take care of my new home. Watching Arthur devote himself even more to his work, trusting me to take care of the household, brought me a certain sense of satisfaction. But that didn't last long.
Michelle, you should go to the doctor.
For what?
For our baby. It's been a while, and nothing's happened yet. My parents are asking when they can expect some news.
Arthur's parents were very strict and didn't really approve of their flashy son. However, his relationship with his parents improved after our marriage. I often visited his family's home and felt they were fond of me. Despite his flashy ways, Arthur held on to some old-fashioned ideas, like wanting his company to be passed down to a son. A son? That's pretty old-fashioned, isn't it? Maybe it's the influence of his strict parents. We weren't using any contraception, but still, nothing happened. I thought it would happen eventually, so I wasn't too concerned. But Arthur didn't seem to feel the same way. Sure, but isn't it pointless for me to go alone? Isn't this something we should do together?
What? Are you saying it's my fault? It's you, Michelle.
That's not what I mean. I've heard that compatibility might be a factor. Since this is about both of us, I think we should go together.
If you go and they find something wrong, then I won't need to go. If they don't find anything, I'll go too. But for now, go yourself today.
I was angry that Arthur was trying to push all the responsibility onto me, but arguing was pointless. I decided to go along with it and visited the obstetrics and gynecology that day. The results showed no abnormalities. I have no problem. It's your turn. I told him the results when he got home that night.
What's with that tone? Are you saying it's my fault?
I'm not saying that. I'm just telling you the results. Besides, I think it's okay if we wait a bit longer for kids. Wasn't it Arthur who said he'd go if there was nothing wrong with me?
If you keep saying we can wait, time will fly by before you know it. It's because you're not taking this seriously that nothing's happening. You need to get serious.
Get serious? How exactly am I supposed to get serious? Is he really trying to blame me for not being able to have a child? Is he afraid of finding out if something's wrong with him? In the end, Arthur never went to the doctor. Eventually, we gave up on having children, and our life together continued without them. Arthur became more and more absorbed in his work, coming home late just to sleep. Even when we did see each other, we barely spoke, and our marriage grew cold. With too much time on my hands, I started thinking I wanted to do something for myself. I also began to think about gaining the financial independence to live without relying on Arthur. As a child, I dreamed of owning a general shop. You only live once. Even if it doesn't work out, I want to make an effort to achieve that dream. That's what I thought, so I told Arthur. It was the first real conversation we'd had in a long time.
A general store? What a joke.
It's been my dream since I was a kid. I won't trouble you, Arthur.
Are you planning to play shopkeeper? You, Michelle, who's hardly worked a day in your life? I'm not giving you a dime. If you still want to do it, go ahead.
Arthur's response was expected. I never planned to ask for his help anyway. The only reason I could open my little shop was thanks to my mom's support. Thank you so much. I'll work hard and pay you back, I promise. I lost my dad to illness when I was in elementary school. After that, my mom used my dad's life insurance money to start a small restaurant, made it successful, and raised me on her own. She is still a capable mom who runs a small restaurant.
You don't need to pay me back. Just work hard with that spirit.
With my mom's support, I'm sure it'll work out. I had a feeling it would. I had plenty of time. I carefully selected the items to sell in my store. The time I spent was worth it. The shop gained a reputation for carrying quality items, and customers increased day by day. My feeling was right. My mom's support became the wind at my back. My life, which once revolved around waiting for Arthur to come home, became busier. But I didn't want to neglect the housework. I made sure to keep up with cleaning and laundry, and I paid even more attention to Arthur's meals so he wouldn't say, "It's because you're working." Yet, Arthur came home later and later, and there were even nights he didn't come home at all. Is your work so busy that you can't come home?
Yeah,
His responses were curt. Take care of yourself. You're not young anymore.
stop it. Don't talk to me like my mom. Just because you couldn't be one doesn't mean you can treat me like a substitute.
He was in a bad mood today. Sorry, that wasn't my intention.
It's boring at home. Maybe it'd be different if we had kids.
When he's in a bad mood, he blames our lack of children on me, as if it's my fault. Even though he never made any effort, he blames others when things don't go well. I can't take him seriously. What about tomorrow? Will you be home? I'd like a heads up if you're not coming back, so dinner doesn't go to waste.
Do I have to inform you every time? Just eat the leftovers yourself the next day.
At some point, Arthur stopped calling me by my name. At first, being called you made me feel belittled and upset, but now I'm used to it. In the end, Arthur didn't come home the next day either, without any word. It's good if he comes home twice a week. He brings home a pile of laundry, grabs a few days' worth of clothes, and leaves again. One day, as I was about to do Arthur's laundry, I stopped. There was a t-shirt mixed in that didn't belong to him. Judging by the size and design, it was clearly a woman's. So that's how it is. Oddly enough, I didn't feel anything. I guess I knew deep down that this day would come. When Arthur came home, I asked him directly, "Do you have someone else?"
What are you talking about?
"This isn't yours, is it? It got mixed in with your laundry." When I showed him the woman's t-shirt, Arthur was momentarily surprised and then pretended to be calm and said,
Must be from someone at my office. How did it get mixed up?
"Do people really take off their t-shirts at work?"
If you're sweating, wouldn't you change? Are you bored or something? Running a general shop is just plain store, isn't it? No wonder you have time to snoop around.
Continuing any further would only lead to more attacks. If it's nothing, then fine. Sorry for being suspicious. I backed off. But the same thing kept happening. Stockings, earrings, handkerchiefs, underwear. Something clearly feminine kept getting mixed in with Arthur's laundry. The t-shirt wasn't just a coincidence. It was a declaration of war against me. It seems like Arthur's admirer wants me to notice. After it happened several times, I gathered the items that had been mixed into the laundry and put them in a paper bag, then handed it to Arthur.
What's this? I have no idea.
All of this got mixed in with your laundry. This was on purpose, right? She's got a lot of nerve, doesn't she?
Cut it out. My job is nothing like your little shop. It pisses me off that you'd accuse me of cheating when I'm working my ass off. You're such a pain.
He's getting defensive because he knows he's guilty and has no way out.
Just looking at you makes me sick. I won't be coming home for a while. And it's your fault.
I silently watched as Arthur packed his clothes into a bag and walked out. As I heard the door close, I vaguely thought about what I should do next.
Why don't you just leave him? I can take care of you on my own.
The next day, when I visited my mom's restaurant and told her about Arthur, she quickly told me to break up with him. I'm making enough to live on my own. Here, this is for this month. Thank you. My general shop was doing well enough that I could make regular payments to my mom each month.
If you can support yourself, there's no need to put up with it. Have you looked in the mirror lately? You look awful.
That's rude. I laughed and looked in the mirror hanging on the wall. The person staring back at me was shockingly tired. You're right. I look terrible.
I should have spoken up back then. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Do you still love him even now?
If you ask whether I love him, the answer is no. So why haven't I left him yet? Is it because I don't want to admit I made a mistake? Am I afraid that my life will disappear like a bubble? I didn't even know myself. A month passed. There was no word from Arthur. He was probably doing whatever he wanted, as usual. The shop was busy today too, leaving me no time to think about Arthur. As I was getting ready to close up, my cell phone rang. The call was from the hospital. Arthur had been brought in by ambulance. They needed me to come immediately because he was about to undergo tests and possibly surgery. Since I couldn't drive, I called a taxi while closing up the shop. But it was busy today, and they said it would take 20 minutes. I quickly called my mom, and she came to pick me up right away. Sorry for bothering you during your busy time before opening.
What are you talking about? The regulars are the only ones who come in, so it's okay if I open a little late.
With my mom driving, we headed to the hospital. After asking for the room number at the reception, we took the elevator and walked to the room we were told. I heard laughter. It was Arthur's voice. As I entered the room, still doubting my ears, an unbelievable scene awaited me. Next to Arthur, who was lying on the bed, a young woman was sitting, holding a baby. Noticing me, Arthur spoke with a grin on his face.
I've been waiting. Fill out the divorce papers.
Arthur rudely shoved the divorce papers at me, who was still in shock. The young woman beside him smirked.
Oh, so you're Arthur's wife. Sign it right now. We're getting married.
Don't worry, Emily. It'll be okay.
That's when I noticed. The woman named Emily was wearing the t-shirt that had been mixed in with Arthur's laundry.
Well, I suddenly got a stomachache. That was awful. But it's appendicitis. The intravenous drip cured my pain. So I'm probably not going to have surgery. I'm just taking some medicine.
I didn't ask about that. I didn't care about his condition. I understood that this woman, Emily, was Arthur's mistress. But was the baby she was holding Arthur's child? Noticing me staring at the baby, Arthur gently placed his hand on the baby's head and stroked it lovingly.
He's my son. It turns out you were the problem after all.
Hearing that, as I stood before Arthur's child, was too much to bear.
That's quite a cruel thing to say.
My mom, who had been silent until then, finally spoke up.
Oh, you came too, huh?
Arthur's feigned surprise, even though he had noticed her, irritated me. Whoa.
Having a mistress and even a secret child. Michelle might forgive you, but I won't.
You're so cool, Grandma. But being furious is bad for your health. You're an old lady, so try to stay calm, okay?
Emily mocked my mom with a laugh. It was annoying, but my mom wasn't the type to be intimidated by something like that.
Don't you know about that thing?
My mom asked with a confident smile.
That thing? What are you talking about?
You know what I'm talking about. You must have an idea, right?
What are you talking about? I have no idea. Arthur, this grandma is freaking me out.
Emily was visibly shaken.
I don't know anything. But if it's related to Emily, are you sure you don't have any idea?
I'm telling you I don't. Are you doubting me? Are you really going to believe this old lady over me? That's terrible. You're awful.
Emily started to cry loudly. I wondered if anyone would be fooled by such fake tears.
I'm sorry, Emily. Don't cry. Of course, I believe you.
This was happening right in front of me. It was so ridiculous, I couldn't stand it. I was about to leave after filling out the divorce papers.
Excuse me.
2 men in suits and a woman entered the room. The woman walked up to Emily, showed something that looked like a badge, and then opened a piece of paper to show her. Emily stared at it, her face turning pale.
Are you Emily? This is a warrant. Please confirm. It's 5:30 p.m. You're under arrest on suspicion of fraud.
The 3 people in suits were police officers. The paper they showed was apparently an arrest warrant. What on earth had happened? Even I was confused, so it was only natural that Arthur was in a panic.
Wait, what? Suspicion of fraud? What's going on?
Without responding to Arthur, the female officer took the baby from Emily and cuffed her hands.
No, I didn't do anything. Help me. Arthur, please.
I said she didn't do anything. Let her go. Don't put those on her.
As Arthur tried to get out of bed, a nurse who had just come in desperately restrained him.
Take these off. Arthur, do something.
Both of them were on the verge of losing it.
If you keep resisting, you'll end up with more charges, so calm down.
The female officer, who had been calm until then, raised her voice, and Emily finally gave in, collapsing on the spot and crying out. Arthur, too, was stunned and unable to move. The male officer immediately lifted Emily up, and as he carried her out of the hospital room, her cries echoed down the hallway.
We appreciate your cooperation.
The female officer remaining in the room turned to Mom, thanked her, and left. I had no idea what was going on. What on earth is happening?
That girl has been involved in multiple marriage scams.
Marriage scams? After hearing from me that Arthur might have a mistress, Mom hired a private investigator to uncover the truth. I really admire her proactive approach. And a few days later, when Mom saw the photos that were handed over, she was shocked. The woman smiling next to Arthur looked exactly like the person in the photo a regular customer once showed her, saying, "This girl scammed me."
At first, I thought it was just a coincidence, but something kept bothering me.
So she went to the police to consult.
I was shocked when I went to the police. At her age, she was already a well-known marriage scammer.
When Mom learned that she would be arrested in a few days, she called the police right after I called her today, knowing that Emily would likely go to the hospital too.
I never expected her to be arrested right here.
Not knowing that such things were happening behind the scenes, Arthur and Emily laughed as they handed me the divorce papers.
Thanks to this, even the naive Arthur must have faced reality. Haven't you noticed something too?
Mom said to Arthur, but he just stared blankly into space. I signed the divorce papers on the spot. Mom kindly filled in the witness section. As I thought about how this was all prepared in anticipation of my arrival, I felt a surge of frustration. But seeing Arthur dazed in front of me, that feeling started to fade. Now, you can marry that con artist. Best of luck. I put the divorce papers in my bag and left the hospital room with Mom. The next day, I submitted the divorce papers. There was no sadness or loneliness at all. Thinking about what I had to do from now on, I felt a surge of determination. I can't let things end like this. About a week later, I headed to the address Arthur had given me. It was the address of the apartment where Arthur, Emily, and their child lived. When I arrived and looked up at the apartment building, complex emotions washed over me. While living with me, Arthur had built another family here. But those feelings were drowned out by the piercing cry of a baby. The child of Arthur and Emily had been placed in a facility on the day of the arrest, but a few days later, after Arthur's discharge, the baby was back home. I rang the intercom, and when Arthur appeared, I was shocked. In just a few days, he looked like a completely different person, so worn out.
Michelle, you came to help me?
Hearing my name after so long made my skin crawl. Help you? No way. I came because I have business here.
Come on, help me. I can't handle raising a child on my own.
How convenient his thinking is. I was amazed, but the child was innocent. I entered the room and picked up the baby who was crying in the bed. As I gently patted the baby's back, it began to calm down.
Wow, you're amazing. You've never even been a mom before.
This lack of tact is something I really dislike. The room was a mess. Unwashed baby bottles were scattered on the floor, and the table was covered in spilled formula powder. In the kitchen sink, dirty dishes were piled up.
I didn't think raising a child would be this hard. They can't talk, so I don't know what they want. And they cry all night, so I can't sleep.
So that's why he looks so worn out. As I soothed the baby, I told him I had just submitted the divorce papers and silently handed him the documents. They were the papers regarding the assets I was to receive.
What's this?
The money I'm getting from you, Arthur. Arthur's voice, which had been pitiful until now, suddenly changed.
Are you kidding? This amount is ridiculous. Don't get cocky.
I couldn't help but laugh at how quickly he switched back to saying you. But it suited him better. I'm completely serious. I'm getting half of the assets, and also alimony. You built another family while still married to me, didn't you? I think this amount is fair.
Is it all my fault? You're the reason I had to start another family.
What reason could that possibly be?
It's because you couldn't have kids.
I expected this. Since I managed the house well while working, without giving him any reason to complain, I had anticipated this would be his excuse, and it didn't hurt as much. Unfortunately, not being able to have children isn't a valid excuse for infidelity. Want to fight this in court? It'd be quite something to see a couple taking each other to court. Arthur couldn't say anything back. He knew he had no chance of winning in court. Not only would it be expensive, but he would lose in the end. Arthur wasn't the type to engage in meaningless battles.
Fine, I'll pay you what you're asking. But please, until Emily gets back, can you take care of the baby? I haven't even been able to go to work.
You expect me to help you, Arthur? How much does he need to insult me before he's satisfied? Does he really expect me to take care of their child until Emily returns? If you're serious, I'll seriously answer. I won't forgive you, Arthur, for disregarding my dignity. There's no way I would help you. Why don't you ask your parents?
I already did. But you know they won't accept this situation. They disowned me, saying they would never approve of me marrying a woman who got arrested for fraud.
The day after I submitted the divorce papers, Arthur's parents came to see me. As soon as they saw me, they apologized for their son's actions. Knowing how they were then, it makes sense they would disown him. Arthur lost even his parents because of Emily. Emily didn't have any parents either. Her parents divorced when she was young, and she was raised by her mother, but her mother went missing around the time Emily graduated from high school. Since then, Emily had survived by repeatedly scamming people.
You know, Emily's had a tough life. She has no one else to turn to.
I do feel sorry for Emily's background, but that doesn't justify her scams or give me any reason to help. Why don't you prepare bail money and get Emily back yourself? I said coldly, leaving Arthur's place behind. A few days later, I heard that Emily was released on bail and returned home. There were apparently many victims, but they all agreed to settle out of court with compensation and alimony. But I doubt that Arthur, who has always been careless with money, has any savings. It seems that before they got married, Arthur had given Emily a substantial amount of money. If we hadn't had kids, my relationship with Arthur might have ended just as a financial arrangement.
I have a favor to ask. Could you wait a bit for the division of assets and alimony?
As expected, Arthur came to me in tears. Beside him stood Emily, holding their child. Why?
It's necessary for the settlement. Please help me.
I had planned to sell the house we lived in for years and divide the assets and alimony. But now he was asking me to give it all to him without dividing it. Even at this point, he still asks for help. Though I anticipated this, I can't help but feel pity for my ex-husband. I told you before, didn't I? I won't forgive you, Arthur. There's no way I'm helping you, but I'll give you one choice. I had already prepared a plan.
How arrogant, you old woman. What choice?
Emily, shut up.
Arthur scolded Emily, who was sulking. Your company.
What?
Hand over the company to me.
What? Are you out of your mind?
Emily's voice rose in surprise.
What nonsense are you talking about? There's no way I'm giving it to you.
Arthur's voice was also shaky. The one spouting nonsense is you, Arthur. You either give up on the settlement or hand over the company. There's no other option. Oh, or maybe you could rely on someone else. I knew Arthur had no one else to rely on. And I also understood how significant it was to give up the company. When he talked about his dream of starting it, when it was established, when it grew, I was always there with him. That's precisely why I decided to take it away. For someone who belittled the person I was, the life I lived with him, I decided to take away the company that was likely precious to him.
I worked so hard to build this company.
So what? That has nothing to do with me. If you hate it so much, let Emily spend some time in jail. From what I see, she doesn't seem remorseful.
You old woman, what do you think will happen to this child if I end up in jail? Don't you feel sorry for them? Women who couldn't become mothers are really cold-hearted, huh?
There's no point in talking to her. It's as if she has no grasp of reality. When Arthur was starting the company, I had invested a little in it. I was thrifty, never spending my allowance or holiday money from a young age. Even the money I earned from part-time jobs in high school and college was barely touched, so I had saved $20,000 at that time. I invested all of it. It wasn't much, but for me, it was a significant amount. I just wanted to support Arthur, and now that decision is what might save me. Fate is funny like that, I thought, as if it were someone else's problem. At first, I didn't hold enough shares to call myself a shareholder. But as Arthur's tyrannical behavior drove away his partners, I bought up their shares, and now I own half of the company. The remaining half was owned by Arthur. I could say for sure that aside from the house and the shares, Arthur didn't have any other assets. If you want my help, the only way is for you to transfer all your shares to me. In other words, you'll have to give me the company.
Why should you get it? Arthur, say something. This woman must be out of her mind.
Arthur remained silent. He's a smart man. He must have realized there was no other option. He just couldn't put it into words. You're going to transfer the shares, right? Arthur looked down, his clenched fists trembling. You're going to give up the company, right? I pressed him, but he couldn't say anything. I'll ask you one last time. This is your final chance. You're going to give me the company, right? Hearing the words, last chance, Arthur lifted his pale face.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
He forced the words out.
What are you saying? If you give up the company, what are we going to do? I married you because you were the CEO. I've been deceived. You're a fraud. Don't let this woman boss you around.
I couldn't stop laughing. What about you? Are you not going to follow my orders? I asked Emily while laughing, and she looked at me with a worried expression.
What do you mean? What orders?
The alimony. You didn't think Arthur would be the only one liable, did you?
Why should I have to pay?
Emily looked at Arthur for help, but Arthur couldn't say anything and just hung his head. You broke up my family. Of course, you'll have to pay. The compensation is $30,000.
I don't have that kind of money.
Whether you have it or not isn't my concern. If you refuse, we'll just go to court. I wonder how a trial would go while you're out on bail.
I'm done with this. I just wanted to be happy. So why is this happening? It's all your fault.
Emily cried out in frustration. There's no happiness built on someone else's misery. Happiness is connected. You become happy while wishing for someone else's happiness. Will Emily ever realize that? I'll go through my lawyer for anything else, so for now, take this lovely wife of yours and leave. Arthur silently took Emily's hand, who was still crying and yelling, and led her to the door. I heard the door close and silence returned. After that, I took over all of Arthur's shares and became the CEO. The money from selling the shares went towards the settlement, leaving Arthur and Emily with nothing. They must be full of anxiety about their future. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be lenient about the division of assets or the compensation. I'll make sure to collect what's owed.
Can't you give me a little more time? The settlement took everything I had. There's no way I can pay. I don't even have a job. It's impossible.
I have a suggestion. Why don't you work at my shop? I'm busy and short-staffed. I could hire you and deduct your compensation from your salary.
If I have to work under you, can't I at least go back to my old company? I'd be an asset right away. And you must be busy there too.
It's true we're busy. But I have no intention of bringing Arthur back. No, Arthur, I don't need you there. If you're okay with playing shopkeeper, I'll hire you at my store. It didn't matter to me how he decided. As long as I got the unpaid assets and compensation, that's all I cared about. I had no intention of waiting. Apparently, working at my shop was too much of a blow to Arthur's pride, so he refused my offer and started working as a laborer at a construction site instead. Whether he worked under me or not, the amount he owed didn't change. I made sure to check every month that the payments were made on time and contacted him if they were even a day late. He should be grateful I'm letting him pay in installments. Now, Emily works at my shop too, cleaning early in the morning before Arthur leaves for work. Her salary goes straight to me as compensation, so she doesn't see a single cent.
Why do I have to do this kind of work?
She's not happy about it, but with a small child and being out on bail, it's unlikely she'll find another place willing to hire her. She has no choice but to work here. How long can Emily, who has lived a flashy life by deceiving countless men, endure this dull job? Arthur's income has dropped significantly from when he was the CEO, and their life is unexpectedly tough. It seems like they argue constantly. The day they split up might not be far off. Meanwhile, my shop is still growing in sales. We've even started online sales, and I've had to hire more staff because I can't handle it all by myself. Managing the shop was already busy enough, but now that I'm running the company too, I'm so swamped that I could use all the help I can get. I even asked my mom if she could close her small restaurant and come help me, but she quickly turned me down.
This job is my passion, so please don't take it away from me.
Mom says with a smile. Her smile is my motivation. Right now, I can't help but enjoy my work. The general store is my childhood dream come true. I feel like I'm nurturing it with care. The company I took from Arthur holds a special place in my heart because I've known it since I was young. That said, managing it has been tough for someone like me with no experience, and I couldn't have done it without my team. When they found out I became the owner, some old colleagues returned and joined in the management. It's incredibly reassuring. I'm hopeful that together, we'll make it even bigger. It's busy, but full days. I've had my share of painful and frustrating moments, but now I feel incredibly happy. With the support of my mom and my team, I'm fully immersed in the work I love.
You're looking great lately.
Mom said as I glanced in the mirror. There, I saw a vibrant version of myself.